get very, very open, and then I feel patterns of energy, kind of empathically. It's like I merge into their higher, I don't know what you would call it, their energy bodies, I suppose. And that sort of transfers into me. And as it does, I know a lot about how everything's working, so that I will understand sort of what the life purpose is, or what the soul is trying to do and trying to get through to the personality, and what it's trying to express, what might be in the way, how long things might take, a whole dynamic of the person's self-expression, or where the blockages might be and how to get rid of the blockages and how long it might take. So it's a kind of a read on a person's process.
Do you ever work with just a huge sales force?
No, I've worked with management teams and smaller teams.
Because I think that would work.
Yes, it does. And just even training people on how to get information intuitively, how to read things intuitively, even how to make decisions intuitively.
Would you necessarily try to get away from a psychic vampire, an energy sapper, as I call them? Or would you hang around them?
I don't think anybody likes to hang around them. That's a difficult kind of situation, to hold your own energy in the field of someone who's really trying to absorb energy and get a lot of attention. What those people are really doing is that they can't feel themselves. They're not in themselves, really. They're not centered. No.
And sometimes they don't know they're doing this.
That they don't.
I sometimes, though, when you talk about who would want to be around them, I kind of hang around them sometimes to see how long I can take it. Before I'm wiped out. I'm getting pretty good. I'm training myself to be able to withstand it.
Yes.
If you generate more energy than what they take from you, you're constantly replenishing it. They can't get to you.
No, that's true. And, there are certain kinds of, what would you call it, neuroses, I guess you would call it, where people, even if you give them what they say they want, they really can't receive it. They don't experience receiving. Mm-hmm. So they just keep demanding. So nothing ever fills them up. It's almost like they need the Zen stick over the head, to be jarred out of the old habit.
Is there a science behind this, behind frequency or the intuitive way? Is there any science at all?
I think that we do have the brainwave trainings, as I mentioned before, on working with like alpha states and all of that. I don't think there's, science, not so much.
They don't touch this stuff.
I think that it hasn't gone into the realm of science yet too much. Although I just read about that man who invented the lung flute. Have you seen that? Where he was a musician. He was working in a sound studio, and he realized that somehow if he could make the same frequency of sound that the lungs use, the cilia in the lungs move it like a certain number of cycles per second. Right. And if he could make a low-frequency sound like that, it would move the mucus out of lungs. And he did it. He created this flute that you blow into, and it makes a sound, and it moves the jammed up lungs. It clears your lungs. And that's all frequency vibration stuff.
That's interesting.
I kind of have a feeling that we're going to have a lot of breakthroughs in medicine similar to that in the near future.
Do you think the Egyptians vibrated the blocks of stone and made the pyramids that way?
Yes, I do.
Like floated them in somehow?
I do. I think they lightened them up, or they reversed the gravity in some way on them through vibratory methods.
Yeah, I think
Absolutely.
They did too. It's been going on for a long, long time. Do some cultures practice it more than others?
I think that, for instance, like Tibetan bowls and chanting and oming and making certain sounds have been in spiritual practices around the world for eons, and they're there for a certain reason because it creates mental states. It creates certain kinds of consciousness. Because you know that energy and consciousness are just flip sides of the same coin. You raise your energy, you raise your consciousness.
Why do you say that sensitivity and empathy are the next steps beyond intuition?
Because I think that the process of enlightenment, now this gets into things a bit, but I think instead of leaving our bodies and going out into, the higher realms, that instead we're coming into our bodies, that we're bringing attention down in frequency into the physical plane, and we're merging entirely with the physical plane. So that means that the body becomes very important, and that means that sensitivity, which is a body-related kind of thing, whereas intuition sometimes can be more mental and abstract, sensitivity is directly a kind of body knowing, and it's very vibrational. And I think that sensitivity then is the next skill set that we're going to learn to read energy, read vibration, and we'll read it in our own bodies. Our bodies will be sort of the barometer.
Should you work at this, let's say, in the morning?
Well, anytime. I think it's very important to find your home frequency when you're quiet. So if it's in the morning for you or late at night like we're doing now when it's really quiet and the vibrations carry easily, it's a great time. But then again, you need to do it all day. Whenever you can remember to get centered and get quiet and reconnect with who you really are and keep your frequency up at a level where you feel really good. And especially if you've just experienced something that makes you contract and unconsciously you've given up your good feeling and somebody's talked you into feeling bad, then you have to catch yourself.
Right.
And say, wait a minute, this is not the way I like to be. And it's up to me to choose to feel the way I like to feel. And so many of us are just waiting for somebody else to make it, right for us. Okay, give me the love, make me feel good. And it's not going to happen. We have to do it.
Well, we have to do it. That's absolutely true. And we also have to teach other people to do it. That's right.
That's right. I think that part of this whole process is that sort of all of us, I hear it, I'll backtrack because sometimes I hear from people that saying, I don't fit in. I don't have anyone to talk to. I'm a stranger in my family.
Right.
And they feel like isolated. And I said to them, in order to influence other people, you have to stand out. If you just fit in with the masses, nobody will hear you. You have to first stand out enough that people can see you and hear you. Then you take on the role of being a teacher or a healer or a leader in your own way, whatever way you feel like, but be an example of the things that you want to teach. But first you do have to stand out, that's part of it.
Well, and it does work. Penny, how do people get your book, Frequency or The Intuitive Way?
Both of them are, of course, available on Amazon, but also at Barnes & Noble and Borders, so pretty much everywhere.
And you got a number of websites with that we've linked up at coasttocoastam.com. So when we come back, we'll take your phone calls, questions for Penny Pierce, also maybe your intuitive stories. How did it get you out of a mess? I'm George Noory, back in a moment on Coast to Coast AM.